Hello everyone, it's Matt here, and this is a bit of a video, a live Facebook video for the early birds. Well, not really the early birds, the people that are staying up late. I'm currently in Paris. I'm doing this as a podcast as well, so you can tune in either on the Facebook Live or on the podcast. I know it's late in Australia, but I've just arrived in Paris for the start of my Matt McLaughlin signature tour of the Western Front, and I wanted to tell you about the exciting time that I've had in London over the last several days, because it's been pretty amazing. If you haven't kept up with what I've been doing, go to the Facebook page or go to my Twitter feed and see some great photos there, because I've had a pretty extraordinary couple of days. It's been amazing. It started a couple of days ago when I went to Bletchley Park. Now, what I'm here for is, hopefully you've seen my TV series, Living History TV, which we do on Facebook and YouTube. And hopefully you've seen that and you've tuned in. And I'm over here, while I'm here, not only just doing this tour on the Western Front, I'm also filming some absolutely great stuff for Living History TV. So look out for it in the coming weeks. We're going to get that edited and put together and uploaded onto the website. So the first of these was a trip to Bletchley Park, home of the code breakers during World War II. And I'm sure you've seen, you would have seen The Imitation Game. I'm sure you've seen a number of movies, some of them good, some of them not so good, about Bletchley Park over the years, a number of documentaries. It's just such an iconic site. And it was wonderful to get out there. I'd never actually been to Bletchley Park, in spite of a couple of attempts to get out there, a few false starts. I'd never actually been. But heading out there with the film crew to make an episode of Living History TV was amazing. So if you haven't been, it's an old Victorian manor estate out in the countryside, and it's about half an hour on the train from London. And it was selected as the site for the code breaking operations in the late 1930s for a couple of key reasons. Firstly, it was there and it was available. The manor house was for sale. It had a lot of space that they knew they would need to install these code breakers. It had excellent communications back to London, both in terms of telegraph lines, but also a train line that ran straight past it. But most importantly, it was close to London, but out of London. So there was an expectation during the Second World War that cities would be absolutely pulverised from the air, that waves of bombers would fly over and make cities uninhabitable, effectively. We saw a bit of it during the Second World War, particularly in Germany, with attacks on Hamburg and Nuremberg and other places like that. But really, it never really, that fear never really came to fruition. In spite of the fact that London was obviously knocked around throughout the war, it never reached the stage where it was uninhabitable. But in the late 1930s, with the clouds of war looming, the expectation was that the cities would have to be evacuated at some stage. And so the government departments began buying up and acquiring sites outside London in order to have a place to go to if the cities were uninhabitable. And Bletchley Park was chosen as the area for this top secret code breaking operation. And so it was great to get out there. And today they've preserved the house, the mansion, they call it, the manor house, the huts that they built. So I mean, eventually they had 9,000 people out there working on code breaking. And so they had to build a lot of facilities for them. And so they built these famous huts all over the grounds, which were just simple buildings that people occupied. And it was great to get out there. It's a wonderful museum. I knew that they'd done a good job, but I think the British do this just about better than anyone. They've just got this incredible ability to take the history and distill it into a very recognisable, a very engaging way of understanding the history. And so when you go out there, you can tour the mansion house, and they've got it set up as it would have been in the 1930s into the 1940s. And you can go and tour many of the huts, most of the huts you can go and tour, and they've got exhibitions set up, and they just do it really well. They had a couple of special exhibitions going on, one of which on D-Day was remarkable, the role of the code breakers in D-Day, and that was really well done. A special exhibition on the bomb machine, the famous computers that broke the Enigma code, which also paid a lot of tribute to the Polish code breakers who did great work in the 1930s before the war had even begun. The Poles were doing great work breaking Enigma. And so I was able to go out there and spent the whole day there. It was fantastic. They showed us around and took us to all these great places. I was able to tour the grounds at Bletchley Park, see all the sites, go into the huts, just across the whole site. Beautiful. It was a beautiful sunny day. The weather was great and we did some really great filming. But the absolute highlight, and please go check out the photos on Facebook and on Twitter for this, was they brought out an original World War II Enigma machine. I could not believe it. A captured German Enigma machine, which is in full working order. They've rigged it up with a modern battery and it still works exactly as it did during the Second World War, and they let me use it. I couldn't believe it. I was like a kid in a lolly shop. They put it in front of me, I opened up the box, and I got to learn all about how it worked, the complicated system of rotors, the plug board, the whole thing. We spent probably an hour and a half just going through the whole thing, being shown by one of their historians there. It was really wonderful. And this was the same Enigma machine that they used in the movie, The Imitation Game. So I've had my hands on the same device that Benedict Cumberbatch used in that movie. And so it was a great day, and that was an absolute highlight of everything that I've done. I'm very, very lucky with everything I get to do in my job, but sitting there and playing with an Enigma machine was absolutely amazing. I loved it. It was so great. Check out the photos. You'll see my beaming face. It was just a rare privilege. And I want you to know that. I mean, I post these photos up because, you know, I feel that we all have a common interest here. We all share the same feelings with this, that I feel so incredibly privileged to be doing this stuff. I never want you to think that I'm sitting back going, oh yes, you know, I'm, you know, a deserved historian who should be doing all this stuff. I'm absolutely not like that. I get so excited whenever I have these opportunities, and that was really one of them at Bletchley Park. So just a great day. Spent the full day out there. Didn't see nearly enough of the sites that are there because there's so much to see and do. When you head out there, and I strongly suggest you do if you're going to be in London, allocate the entire day. You'll need every minute of it, and it's really great. And they've got projects for children as well, so it is somewhere you can take the family. Don't have the impression that it's just for nerds who love maths. If you are a nerd who loves maths, you'll really enjoy it, but everyone else will enjoy it as well. It's very, very well done. My hat's off to Bletchley Park. They do a great job. I go to a lot of museums, and they vary in quality. I've seen a lot of museums that I just don't think are particularly good. I won't tell you the list of those now. You'll have to come up and see me sometime and buy me a beer and I'll tell you. But Bletchley Park is not one of the ones that I think is poorly done. It's brilliant. They've done a brilliant job. So very engaging history. They just, as I said, the British do this better than anyone, I think, in terms of engaging with their history. The Enigma machine that I used is actually part of a school's program. So if school kids come out, they get to examine the Enigma machine up close. So wonderful. Where else would they do that? They certainly wouldn't do it in Australia. They definitely wouldn't do it in America. Anywhere else, that Enigma machine would be in a glass case and everyone would just have to stand around reverently taking photos and not getting too close to it. I love what the British do. They're brilliant. They bring it out and they let school kids play with it and use it. Just a great way of connecting the younger generation with this really important chapter of history. So that was my day at Bletchley Park. So I had two great cameramen with me and a film crew, and so we recorded a great little documentary, which I imagine will go for 20 or 30 minutes, just about the story of Bletchley Park. And so thank you very much to Bletchley Park. It was wonderful to be hosted out there, and they do a fantastic job. Get out there if you're in London. If you haven't been, make it a priority next time you come to London. That was my day at Bletchley Park. That was the day before yesterday. Yesterday, another great day. I went out in the evening, in the late afternoon, I went to the Royal Air Force Museum. Just getting a couple of messages there. Hello, Adam. Adam Bloom, one of our most loyal repeat passengers, is coming on the tour. Terry O'Halloran, we're in the bar. Come down for a beer. I'll be heading down shortly. It's great. I'm really excited about everyone I'm going to be meeting on this tour. I have not led a tour of the Western Front since 2012, so hopefully I'm not too rusty. But this is great. The signature tour, I'm really looking forward to it. So everyone who's watching and who is on the signature tour, I will see you tonight. Looking forward to meeting you all. So yesterday, RAF Museum at Hendon, just north in the northern part of London. So we went out there and had some quite exclusive access. There was a function on that if you come to London, can do this as well. It was a Battle of Britain behind the scenes kind of night that they had on at the RAF Museum in Hendon. And basically, after they closed the museum, they left one hangar open, and there were 11 aircraft that they took down the barriers, and they took panels off the planes so you could see inside and see the engines, and basically they encouraged everyone who'd bought a special ticket to come to this event. Only about 60 or 70 people could then go all around the plane, and they had step ladders leading up so you could look into the cockpits, and you couldn't touch them, you couldn't climb in them or touch them, but you could get really close. You could lean right into the cockpits of incredible aircraft. Again, like I was saying before, the British do this so well. If this was in Australia or in America, these aircraft would be displayed hanging from the ceiling. You wouldn't be allowed to get close to them. Here, they let you get in them and climb all over them and take photos, and just remarkable. I love, if you're British, thank you, you do a great job with your history. So it was a really great night. So we were there, we got there a little bit earlier, so they gave us some exclusive access so we could do some filming again for Living History TV. So we spent a good couple of hours with one of their historians going around visiting all these aircraft. So there were 11 aircraft that they had special access to, some amazing aircraft, and a number of them were pretty special. So they had, I won't be able to remember them all, but they had Hurricane, Spitfire and a Bf 109 that had all been involved in the Battle of Britain. And this is an absolutely incredible, rare piece of history that they know that these aircraft were involved in the Battle of Britain, because the Battle of Britain was one summer in 1940 and the war went on for another 5 years. So aircraft that flew in the Battle of Britain were then pressed into service for other jobs. They were later destroyed. They were ripped apart for spare parts. They were upgraded. It's very, very, very unusual to find specific aircraft were involved in the Battle of Britain in the summer of 1940. And they've got 3 of them there. They've got the key planes, the Hurricane, the Spitfire and the Bf 109. So it was great to get up close to those planes, and we got to get really close to them. I actually touched a couple of them, which is probably not quite allowed, but it was okay. I was there with one of the historians who was touching them as well. But just wonderful to get so close to these amazing aircraft. And they also had an Italian Fiat, which was a biplane which had participated in the Battle of Britain, which is a chapter I knew nothing about. The Italians participated in a very small way in the Battle of Britain. They had an Italian biplane there. And so they were the key aircraft, the 4 aircraft, all that had flown in the Battle of Britain. So we examined those in great detail. And I think what I'll do is I'll work this out with my editor when we cut these together, but I think what I'll do is make a small mini little documentary on each aircraft. So if you're interested in the Lancaster or the Spitfire or the Fiat or the Bf 109, we'll cut them into short little standalone documentaries so you can watch those rather than trying to bundle them all together. So we saw those 4 Battle of Britain aircraft, which were excellent. Another one we saw, Lancaster, S for Sugar. So if you've been to the War Memorial in Canberra, and G for George is the famous Lancaster they've got in the aircraft hall at the War Memorial, they had another Lancaster there, which was S for Sugar, and coincidentally also an Australian aircraft, flown by an Australian crew from 467 Squadron. 467 was an RAF, a British squadron, but predominantly made up of Australians. So it would have had a mixed crew of Australians, British, Canadians, maybe some New Zealanders. But it was the second most active Lancaster of the war. It flew 130 something missions. Considering that the average Lancaster only survived 20 missions, it was pretty remarkable that S for Sugar flew that many missions, and by Australians as well. So we got right up close to the Lancaster, and the bomb bay was open, and we climbed up underneath and got our heads in there and stood in the bomb bay, and it was really quite spectacular. What other aircraft did we see? Oh, Stuka, of course, the Junkers 87, the Stuka. Again, really great. Got nice up and close to that one. A remarkable aircraft, and not many of them. I think there's only 2 of them in this condition in the world, so that was quite remarkable. Oh, I see Jennifer Bear, my wonderful friend and production assistant. Hello, Jen. Thank you very much for all your help with all this stuff. All the great photos you see on Facebook and on Twitter were taken by Jen. So, Jen, thanks for all your help with all the shooting. It was great. So we saw the Stuka. They saw, probably my highlight was the Heinkel 111. Which is not necessarily a sexy plane if you're talking about Spitfires or Bf 109s, but the Heinkel HE 111 was the famous German bomber, a light bomber. And when you see those iconic photos, there's one in particular, a famous photo taken from directly above, looking down on burning London with the silhouettes of several bombers. Those are HE 111s. So it was remarkable to get up close to the Heinkel. I think there's only 2 or 3 in the world. And it's just a really interesting German aircraft, tiny compared to the Lancaster. And it was one trick that the Germans missed during the war, is they never really had a heavy bomber. Even though they tried to develop one throughout the war, they never really succeeded. So their bombers were always very light and rather ineffective. But it was great to get up close to that one. What else do we see? Mosquito, the wooden wonder, the twin-engine Mosquito. It was great to find out some more about that one. What else did we look at? I think that was... a Night Fighter, a Bf 110 Night Fighter, which was great, and also some other bits and pieces, just other aircraft we looked at. So it was really a fantastic evening that we spent. We spent 4 or 5 hours there checking out all these aircraft, really quite wonderful. And then a highlight as well is they have a Spitfire there from later in the war, from 1944, but you can sit in the Spitfire, and I got to sit in it. You've probably seen the photo on Facebook and on Twitter of me sitting in the cockpit. Let me just say, everyone can do this. I think it's 10 quid you pay extra to go and sit. They give you 5 minutes sitting in the cockpit. You can play with all the controls. Really remarkable experience. So definitely do that if you head to the RAF Museum in North London. So again, that was really great. So look out for the documentaries that we're going to make about those. It was a real pleasure to go and see these wonderful links with history and I really enjoyed it. It was really great. Thanks to my film crew who did a wonderful job of supporting me in that and making what I'm sure will be some wonderful vision to illustrate these important chapters of history. And now the next chapter begins, my signature tour. So for those that don't know, this is a tour that we advertised about a year ago. And basically I was keen to get back to the battlefields. I stopped leading Western Front tours in 2012 and I handed them over to my very capable team of wonderful historians. And I'm sure anyone who is watching this who's been on the tours with us would know those great historians, Joe Hook, Pete Smith, John Anderson. The list goes on. There's so many talented people out there that lead tours for us. Wonderful people who do a great job. But I was just keen to get my toe back in the water and lead a tour. So a year ago we promoted this tour, the Matt McLaughlin Signature Tour, for 10 days on the Western Front. And now finally the day's arrived. Tonight we meet in Paris to begin that tour and heading up to the battlefields. Hopefully I still remember my stuff. But we've got quite a few behind the scenes and special inclusions that we don't normally include on a Western Front tour. So it's going to be a great experience. I'm really excited. And I'll do more of these during the course of that tour. I don't know if I'll do one every day, but I'll certainly do updates. I'll do Facebook Live posts. I'll do podcasts to keep you updated with everything that's going on that Western Front tour. It's really exciting. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for joining me for this one. As I said, I know it's late. I'll try and do them a little bit earlier in the day from now on, but thank you for joining me on this one. Please keep tuning into the podcast and to Facebook Live for more updates as I travel through the battlefields of the Western Front. Thank you for following me with everything I do. Make sure you subscribe, tell your friends. Please follow the podcast. The podcast is one of the most engaging things that I do. So go to Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or the Google Podcasts. There's a whole heap of places you can go online, and please look for Living History with Matt McLaughlin. Subscribe to that podcast and give it a review. And I'm sure you'll enjoy it if you're driving in the car or heading to work or doing some exercise or whatever you're doing. It's a great opportunity to put on a podcast and hear about some exciting things in history. I'll be doing more filming when I go back to London after the Western Front tour, and many, many more podcasts. So look out for good contact there. Thanks, Jen. Just ignore Jen there with her comments. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to sign off now and go and have a beer and meet my tour group. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll talk to you in the coming days. Bye-bye.